Okay, pre-algebra, here are some examples on how to do the addition and subtraction equations with fractions and mixed numbers. Excuse me. I will do several examples, and of course, if you have any trouble and you need to ask, just go ahead and send me an email or a text, and I would be more than happy to help you. Okay, so the first thing we do is draw the line down the middle, and I need to get my x by itself, remember, so I'm going to get rid of what's with it, which is the negative 3 1/3. So I do that by, I'm going to erase that, I'm going to do the opposite, and since it's a negative, I'm going to add, and that way I can cancel these out. So negative 3 1/3 plus 3 1/3 becomes 0, so those go away. I'm left with just my x here, and remember, if you do it on one side, you have to do it on the other, so I'm going to write plus 3 1/3 over here under the 5 1/5, and then I have to look and see, do I add or do I subtract? Now, just because you write a plus underneath doesn't mean you actually add. So the sign for the 5 1/5 is negative. So since I have different signs, the 3 1/3 is positive, the 5 1/5 is negative, I will be subtracting. And it's already set up with the biggest number on top because 5 1/5 is bigger than 3 1/3. So I know my answer will be negative because the bigger number is negative. So now what I do is I'm going to find a common denominator. And with 5 and 3, that would be 15. So I'll make new fractions with 15 as a denominator. Multiply that times 5, and then I can multiply that times 5, which gives me 5 here, and then this one is times 3, and that's times 3, so I have 3 here, and then I can't say 3 minus 5, so I'm going to borrow from the whole number, which is the 5, make that a 4, and that makes that 3 and 18, because remember you add the bottom to the top to get your numerator. 18 minus 5 is 13, so I have 13 over 15. And then 4 minus 3 is 1, and I already knew that my answer was negative, so this is my answer. Okay, moving on to the next example. I have this one. So here I'm going to get my x by itself by getting rid of the 2 3/8, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtract 2 3/8 from both sides. So I do that, that cancels those out. I'm going to write minus 2 3/8 underneath here. And then we need to look at this. You see that this one has a minus sign and this one has a minus sign. So the signs are the same. We're going to add and keep the same sign. So I'm going to write plus, and then I'm going to keep the same sign, so my answer will be negative. But I don't have to worry about which one's bigger, which one goes on top, because we're adding them. So we do a common denominator, which with 4 and 8 is 8. So this 3 stays the same. And then up here, I don't know why my thing won't make a 3. Here we go. And so this one's 8, so I multiplied by 2 here. So I'm going to multiply by 2 here, and that gives me 6. Now I add them together. 6 plus 3 is 9, so I have 9 over 8. 3 plus 2 is 5. And then I note that 8 goes into 9 one time with 1 left over. So I have 1 and 1/8, and now I add that to my 5, and I have negative 6 and 1/8. And that is my answer here. And x comes down, and you can say x equals. And that's it. So let's move on to the next example. And this is one of the really hard ones. This is the one that's going to take you a little bit of time. Just work it out step by step. Remember, the first thing you do is you're going to combine like terms. And the like terms here are the 2 and 1/4 and the negative 3 and 1/3. And since one is positive and one is negative, you will be subtracting. The subtraction one, or the bigger one, goes on top, and 3 and 1/3 is bigger than 2 and 1/4. So I'm going to put the 3 and 1/3 on top. I'm going to be taking away 2 and 1/4. And then I look and see what sign that's supposed to be. Since 3 and 1/3 is the bigger number and it's on top, it was my negative number. So my answer will be negative. I'm just going to write that down, that way I don't have to worry about it again. Common denominator with 4 and 3 is 12. So up here we would multiply by 4, and so 1 times 4 is 4. And then down here times 3, so 1 times 3 is 3. And this time we don't have to worry about borrowing from the whole number. 4 minus 3 is 1, so 1/12, and then 3 minus 2 is 1. So now we have negative 1/12 plus x left on this side. Okay, so then we look at this side. I'm going to change color. These two are not like terms. This is supposed to be a 2, and this is supposed to be a 3. Or these two we need to combine like terms, or just both fractions. So I'm going to combine them, and I notice that this one's a negative and this one's positive. So again, I subtract. 4 1/8 is on top because it is your bigger number, so I'm going to put 2 2/3 underneath. And since 4 1/8 is a negative, then after I subtract, I'm going to have a negative answer because it's already a negative. Bigger one's negative. I'm going to go ahead and erase this so I can do a common denominator over here. And with 8 and 3, the common denominator is 24. So 8 times 3 is 24 here, so this top is 3. And this is 3 times 8, and 2 times 8 is 16. I can't say 3 minus 16, so I'm going to change color again to make it easy to see. Borrow from my 4, make it a 3. That makes this a 27 because I added 24 to 3. Okay, so now I can go 27 minus 16, if you're getting lost or not. And 27 minus 16 is 11, so it's 11 over 24. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. I already knew it was negative, so that is what's left on this side. I'm not done with the equation yet. Okay, I'm going to move this. I don't have a lot of room here. Now remember, you're trying to get your x by itself, and we still have this fraction over here with the x. So I'm going to get rid of it by doing the opposite. Since it's a minus, I'm going to write plus 1 1/12 over here. That way this cancels out to be nothing, and I just have x left. And then I'm going to write plus 1 1/12 underneath here. Now, they're opposite signs, so again, we need to subtract. The bigger number is the 1 and 11 over 24. Because 11 over 24 is pretty close to half, and 1/12 is really close to 1. So we know our answer will be negative because the bigger number on top is negative. So again, we're subtracting. We need to have a common denominator, which is 24. So that one doesn't change. This one is 24 down here. And then we say 12 times 2, so we're going to go 1 times 2 on the top. And we have 11 minus 2 now, which is 9 over 24. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. So I'm really running out of room, so I'm sorry about that. Let me just erase this right here. So I end up with x equals negative 9 over 24. So again, we went 11 minus 2 right here to get the 9. And we subtracted because our signs were different. This one was negative, this one was positive. Subtract 1 and 11/24 is bigger than 1 and 1/12. So since 1 and 11/24 was negative, our answer is negative. And so we end up with x equals negative 9/24 right there. Okay, let's look at this last example. We didn't have time to do one of these in class, and I kind of told you a little bit about this at the end of class, but let's do an example. We want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to get rid of the 5 and 1/3. It's not negative, and I do that by subtracting 5 and 1/3 from both sides. That cancels this out. I still have this negative x, so we're going to have to deal with that in a second. So I'm going to put negative 5 and 1/3 over here. And now I look at these. I see that I have two negatives, so I will add and keep the same sign. Because they're both negative, I add and it's still negative. So I'm going to do a common denominator, which will be 9. And so that doesn't change up there. This is 9 here. 3 times 3 is 9, so 1 times 3 is 3. Okay. So subtracting, we can't say 2 minus 3, so we're going to borrow from our 3. We're adding. I forgot. Never mind on that. So we don't have to subtract. We're going to just add. 2 plus 3 is 5, right? 5/9. And then 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay? So now we have negative x equals negative 8 and 1/9. So when you get down to this, on these ones on the back page where it had a negative in front of the x, go ahead and get rid of whatever's with the x. When you get your answer like this, we need to change the x to be a positive x, and then just change this one, whatever is on this side, to the opposite. Since it was negative, it is now going to be positive 8 and 5/9. If this was a positive number, I would change it down here to be negative. Okay, so this is the final answer. That's it. It was kind of a long video tonight, but I hope that helped, and I will see you guys tomorrow.